When you're standing in front of a laptop rack, scrolling through endless rows of specs, it's easy to feel that familiar hesitation: is this the right machine for me, or am I just paying for hype? That's the exact mindset I tried to get rid of before I sat down with the NIMO 17.3-inch gaming and creator laptop. I dug through the product page, skimmed the handful of user comments that exist, and compared it to a few of the more established options in the same price bracket. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What follows is the result of that research, a plain-spoken look at how the laptop actually behaves when you fire it up for a few typical tasks, and whether its price really matches the value you'll get. First off, let's talk about the audience. This machine is squarely aimed at two groups: serious gamers who also need a screen large enough for video editing, and students or creators who want a single device that can both run demanding software and double as a portable workstation. If you're a casual gamer who mostly plays indie titles, or a professional who needs a workstation with multiple external monitors and a rock-solid GPU, you'll probably find the NIMO either underpowered or overpriced for what you need. The biggest draw here is the 17.3-inch FHD IPS display with that 180-degree hinge. In practice, that means you can lay the laptop flat on a table and use it like a mini monitor, which is a nice trick when you're editing footage in Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. The screen itself hits 100% sRGB and offers a fairly bright panel, so you won't be squinting in a dim coffee shop. When I tried a recent AAA title, Cyberpunk 2077, on medium settings, the visual fidelity stayed crisp, and the wide screen gave a more immersive feel than a typical 15-inch notebook. Performance is driven by the AMD Ryzen 7 7735HS, a chip that clocks up to 4.75 GHz with 8 cores and 16 threads. Paired with 16 GB of DDR5 RAM, the laptop handles multitasking without a hiccup. I opened Photoshop, ran a quick render in Blender, and then launched a game in the background. The system stayed responsive, and the RAM never maxed out. For most students who need to run Office, a web browser with dozens of tabs, and maybe a couple of coding IDEs, that's more than enough. The 1TB PCIe SSD also feels snappy. Apps launch in a couple of seconds, and file transfers of a few gigabytes finish quickly. Now, the part that separates good from great in a gaming laptop is thermal management. NIMO equips the machine with a dual-fan cooling system, which does a decent job of keeping the CPU and the integrated Radeon 680M GPU within reasonable temps during sustained sessions. In a 30-minute gaming marathon, I saw the CPU hover around 85 degrees Celsius and the GPU near 80 degrees Celsius. Fan noise rose to a moderate whir, comparable to a small desktop fan. It's not a silent office environment, but it's tolerable if you're wearing headphones. The heatsink design seems to channel hot air out the rear vents fairly efficiently, and I didn't notice any thermal throttling that cut performance mid-game. Battery life is where you have to make a trade-off. The 58Wh battery, paired with 100W power delivery fast charging, gives you about 4 to 5 hours of mixed-use light browsing, a bit of video playback, maybe a short spreadsheet session. Push it into a gaming or rendering workload and the runtime drops to roughly 2 hours. For a 17-inch laptop that houses a high-end CPU and a dedicated GPU, this is about what you'd expect. The fast charge feature does let you get back to 80% in under an hour, which is handy if you're moving between classes or a co-working space. Portability, unfortunately, is not the strong suit. At roughly 6.5 pounds and a footprint that's wider than most standard desks, the NIMO feels more like a stationary workstation that you can move occasionally rather than a true on-the-go machine. If you travel a lot and need to pack light, the size and weight could become a daily nuisance. On the other hand, the large screen saves you from needing a separate monitor for a home setup, which can offset the bulk for a student dorm room or a small apartment. One practical advantage that often gets overlooked is the built-in enterprise-grade privacy features, a fingerprint sensor and a one-touch login button. For anyone worried about data security, say, a freelance designer dealing with client files, this adds a layer of convenience without sacrificing speed. The laptop also supports a range of connectivity options, including USB-C with DisplayPort, HDMI 2.1, and a full set of USB-A ports. I could hook up an external 4K monitor for extended desktop work without needing an adapter, which is a nice nod to creators who occasionally need extra screen real estate. Now let's weigh the price against alternatives. A desktop built with a comparable Ryzen 7 CPU, a mid-range RTX 3060 GPU, 16GB of DDR5, and a 1TB SSD will likely undercut the NIMO's price by a few $100s, plus you'll get